Karibu Naivas, home of value.
Naivas, saves you money. Pangarisha inakuwa honey. Prices low kuna funny. Naivas, saves you money. Utasubiri, tunapiga sherehe. Naivas mbele wengine.
Visit your nearest Naivas Key local or shop online for more and save big. Naivas saves you money.
This is Citizen Weekend with Olive Barrows.
A very good evening to you. I'm back on Citizen Weekend. And tonight we get into matters of football, AFCON shame and glory. Just this week on Tuesday, the CAF Appeals Board overturned Senegal's final win of the AFCON 2025, which was held in Morocco, awarding Morocco 3-0. We'll get into that conversation with my panel of experts. There you go on your screen right there. We have Lodvik Aduda, who is a football administrator. We also have joining us two sports lawyers, and that is Sarah Ochuada, FIFA Vice Chair, Player Status Chamber, Chepto Langat, who is a sports lawyer as mentioned, and finally Sam Karanja, communication strategist and sports marketer. The highlights.
Wi-Fi tuliwekewa lakini ilikaa kwa muda wa miezi 6.
No Wi-Fi. Government promise to provide free Wi-Fi in select public places becomes elusive.
We will promote the development of industrial parks, logistics hubs, and commercial centers driven by private sector investment.
We are already pushing our path from Malaba to Kampala, from Kampala to Kasese, Kasese to Mpondwe, linking with DRC.
Connecting East Africa via rail. Presidents William Ruto and Yoweri Museveni launched the Kisumu Malaba SGR with talk of extension to DR Congo.
Masufuria, utensils, stakabadhi za nyumba zote, wenye walifungua mlango hivi, vitu zote zilitoroka zikaenda.
Stranded and homeless. Floods displace hundreds in Dago, Kisumu East.
I'm more embarrassed that our religious leaders, our bishops, our archbishops can preside over the trading of insults in churches.
Wakati rais amekuwa akitusiwa kwa miaka 3, nyinyi mmenyamaza. Akijibu moja peke yake ndio sasa mnajitokeza.
Keep politics away from the pulpit. President Ruto and his allies now turn on the church, accuse it of offering a platform for insults. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Yula Nzale. President William Ruto has today commissioned the construction of the Kisumu Malaba SGR line in a historic move that is set to position Kenya as a prime hub for trade. The event was attended by Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, who also gave a detailed plan of extending the railway into the DRC. As you'll hear now from Laura Otieno, the government says it will set up industrial parks in earmarked areas to allow maximum exploitation of the train's cargo capacity.
Accompanied by his counterpart from Uganda, President William Ruto tightened the first bolt of the 107-kilometer standard gauge railway line marking the first step in an elaborate plan to position Kenya as a prime hub for logistics in the Eastern Africa region. The two heads of state outlining the role of the private sector, inspiring economic growth by upscaling local manufacturing to churn out enough volumes for the 4,000-ton freight capacity train.
We will promote the development of industrial parks, logistics hubs, and commercial centers driven by private sector investment and anchored in regional trade.
Private sector can come in the electricity, but we must agree beforehand about the prices. What prices are you going to charge per kilowatt hour?
Uganda President Yoweri Museveni also outlined plans for extending the SGR line from Malaba, with President Ruto touting the move as a fulfillment of a vision held by the late Raila Odinga during his time as the African Union Envoy for Infrastructure Development.
It was never a railway to nowhere. It was always our plan that this railway was going to be a railway to prosperity. It was going to be a railway to the transformation of the Republic of Kenya.
We are already pushing our part from Malaba to Kampala, from Kampala to Kasese, Kasese to Mpondwe, linking with DRC. And then we are working on the railway from Tororo to Gulu to Nimule to Juba, and also on the line from Bihanga to Kigali, on a branch.
The SGR line now makes Kisumu an intermodal transport hub with a railway line, water transport through the Kisumu port, as well as a vast road network.
Phase 2C project.
The commissioning of the Phase 2C of the SGR line represents an economic awakening, one that will place Kenya as a logistical hub within the East African region and open it up for more trade opportunities. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV at Kibos, Kisumu.
Siaya Senator Oburu Oginga has called for the immediate resolution of the conflict on Lake Victoria, and that has seen scores of Kenyan fishermen arrested by Ugandan security officials. Speaking in Kisumu, Oburu decried the frequent harassment of fishermen who are detained and forced to part with various amounts of fines. The long-running conflict has affected fishermen, mostly from Siaya and Busia counties, for years, who've suffered losses either in paying fines, forfeiting fishing gear, as well as detention over allegations of fishing in Uganda's waters.
President Museveni, I appeal to you, please make this lake of ours, Lake Victoria, a common user facility so that you can manage the security of the lake jointly with us. We don't want harassment from our side and from your side. President Museveni, I plead with you and President Ruto, please make this a common user facility, how it used to be when our forefathers were managing it, without any conflict in the lake at all.
Meanwhile, hundreds of residents in Dago village, Kisumu East, are tonight staring at the possibility of a long, cold night after heavy rains flooded their homes, leaving many stranded, shattered, and homeless. The devastating floods that struck on Friday night have also marooned schools, with residents afraid of outbreaks of waterborne diseases amid massive destruction of property, as you will see now on this report by Crispin Otieno.
This is the devastating scene in Kisumu East on a Saturday morning. Relentless rains pounding different parts of the country, leaving behind a trail of unimaginable loss. Here, a helpless mother struggles to salvage what little she can. Her home, a pool of muddy water, illustrative of the destruction visited on this village.
masufuria, utensils, stakabadhi za nyumba zote. Wenye walifungua mlango hivi, vitu zote zilitoroka zikaenda. Msimu yote ya mvua tumekuwa tukiteseka hivi sababu hatuna uongozi mwema katika hili area yetu.
Those who are staying here are people and they are covered by the Constitution of Kenya, where there's a right, the fundamental rights and freedom of expression are deprived. And I hereby urge the local authorities plus the national, through the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Arap Ruto, whom you know me very well, Mr. President. I've been talking to you in media several times.
Here in Dago, Nyamasaria, hundreds of residents were caught off guard in the dead of night as floods swept through their homes. Several houses now on the verge of collapse, places once called home, now uninhabitable. Residents forced to flee to higher ground, many with nothing but the clothes on their backs.
Tunaomba ambao tulichagua tukaamka asubuhi hata tu kukunywa chai tukaenda kuwachagua waingilie kati hii shida, kwa sababu ikiendelea hivi sijui sasa itakuwa aje. Nyumba za watu zinaanguka.
Our people are suffering because of preventable problems. And we are also in broad-based government. Why should we suffer this? And the president is in Kisumu.
This lonely house stands abandoned, its owners having chosen life over property. A single shoe floating in the water, a haunting reminder of a hasty escape.
We expect the National Youth Service, Your Excellency, to complete the dike construction along River Miriu in Lower Nyakach. At the same time, Your Excellency, the city management team will actively work to clear drainage systems within the city to mitigate further risks.
Some fleeing barefoot just to save their lives. Fear now gripping nearby schools, with parents and teachers worried that learning may be disrupted indefinitely. But even more worrying, the threat of waterborne diseases looming large, as stagnant floodwaters mix with human waste, putting lives at risk. And miles away, in Madogo, Tana River County, River Adele burst its banks on Friday, cutting off transport and paralyzing movement in 3 villages. Here, as of Saturday morning, residents risked their lives crossing the swollen river in search of essential services. A border rider almost swept away by the strong currents, a clear sign of the danger lurking in these waters.
Viongozi, haswa, area MCA. Hii mahali inahitaji daraja ya mguu, watu kupita na juu. Wakati maji inakuwa mingi, watu wanafaa kupita na mguu.
Hali ya usafiri imekuwa shida leo na inahatarisha maisha ya watu. Boda mingi sana karibu hapa ziende na maji.
Transport of goods and people disrupted in Koriso, Coronamatha, and Mbalambala. As these communities count their losses, the meteorological department warns that the heavy rains are far from over, with more downpours expected in the coming days. Crispino, TNO Citizen TV.
The Kenya Civil Aviation Authority says a probe into Friday night's airplane landing at the Wilson Airport has begun. The authority says the Aircraft Accident Investigations Department has secured the plane for investigations. The probe comes as the state of the airport came into sharp focus with calls for hastened repairs and rehabilitation. Brenda Wanga with more on the incident.
Exiting the plane that appears to have landed on the side of the runway at Wilson Airport. The passengers can be heard taking directions to safety by ground staff at the airport. The aircraft, operated by the Aircraft Leasing Services Company, had departed Kisumu International Airport Friday evening, bound for Nairobi's Wilson Airport. However, the anticipated smooth landing was anything but.
If it had remained on the runway,
Vihiga Senator and ODM Deputy Party Leader Geoffrey Osozi was one of the passengers on board.
But it was not a good landing because immediately we touched the ground. We felt that something was not right. The plane hit the runway very dangerously,
and I think it went on for some 200 meters.
The Kenya Airport Authority in a statement says the airplane, which had 39 passengers and 5 crew members on board, veered off the runway at Wilson at 9:25 p.m.
The pilot managed to pull the plane off the runway to the field, and I think that's what saved us all, and we managed to get out of the plane.
In the wake of that incident, the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority has commenced investigations into what caused the airplane to veer off the runway. KCAS says the scene of the incident has been secured to facilitate investigations by the Aircraft Accident Investigations Department as required by aviation safety protocols. The incident now brings into focus the state of the airport, with questions raised about the safety standards at the airport. Just 8 days ago, the issue of safety at the airport came up on the floor of the Senate, with Senator Osotsi demanding answers from the Senate's Committee on Transport, Roads and Housing.
The committee should address the following. 1, the current state of the infrastructure and safety systems at Wilson Airport in Nairobi City County, including the runway, drainage, rescue and firefighting facilities, air control systems.
The committee should make a point to visit those institutions, to see for themselves what is happening, what is going on there. What Senator Osotsi is talking about is something very, very serious.
After the Friday night scare, Osotsi wants the airport closed for repairs and rehabilitation to international standards. The company that operated the plane says it is cooperating with investigations while maintaining that it prioritizes the safety of passengers and crew. The Kenya Airports Authority says the incident has not affected operations at the airport, although some flights out of Wilson were delayed on Saturday. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
When he ascended the presidency in 2022, President William Ruto pledged to transform the country through a digital superhighway, which he said would make Kenya a regional tech hub. In the following months, the former Information, Communication and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary, Eliud Owalo, traversed the country, launching free public Wi-Fi in markets. 3 years down the line, and traders in most of these markets are crying foul after the Wi-Fi went off. Gatusen Njoroge reports.
When it was launched back in December 2022, Wakulima market traders were over the moon. Their dream of sharing their businesses online at zero cost was a game changer. However, that dream was short-lived. 6 months after a colorful launch, the Wi-Fi went off. No one explained what happened and when it would be restored. They were forced to buy bundles from their pockets.
Minji ndio na usanga. Kama miji imeharibika, tunatumia WhatsApp. Tunapiga picha, tunatumia wale watu wanatuhusia mzigo, ndio anaona miji yenyewe sio mzuri. Kwa hivyo kwangu nasema Wi-Fi ilikuwa inatusaidia.
Siku hizi tunarudi kwa mfuko, unaweka data. Siku hiyo tulikuwa inatusaidia, hatuweki data, ilikuwa inatusaidia. Tunaomba serikali yetu iturudishie Wi-Fi kwa soko.
A week later, it was the turn for traders at Nyeri Open Air Market. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and former Information, Communication and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo landed in the area to launch the free public Wi-Fi. 3 years later, and the situation is not so rosy.
Kuna sometimes huwa inabafa, inaanguka, sometimes haiko strong vile. Na tunaweza taka pia serikali iingilie kati, tuangalilie mambo na cyber security yetu.
Haifanyi kazi mfululizo. Hapo bereni ilikuwa inatoa mfululizo. Nilikuwa napiga picha vitu yangu na nauza kwa online. Saa hii maybe ninunue data ama niombe mtu mwingine kwa sababu haifanyi kazi.
Traders in Kisii lament what they say is an unkept promise. The anticipated digital transformation in markets remains a mirage, as they have to purchase bundles to share their wares with customers and communicate with suppliers.
Iko lakini haifanyi.
Mimi yangu hata haina. Yako inafanya? Hakuna. Sikufanya hakuna.
It's only in Kabarnet, Baringo County, where for 2 years, traders have enjoyed uninterrupted internet services. Since its launch in August 2023, free public Wi-Fi remains active, enabling business people to explore opportunities online and cut down on operation costs.
Unaweza order mzigo kutoka Nairobi, ama Eldoret, ama Nakuru. Inatusaidia juu tuna communicate na wale through WhatsApp. Tunaongea nao, tuna video call. Inakuwa imetusaidia sana. Imekuwa so simple. Si kama kitambo unaweza toka hapa hivi, uanze ku travel from here to Nairobi kwenda kutafuta mzigo.
ICT and the Digital Economy Principal Secretary, Engineer John Tanui, has attributed the connectivity challenge in some markets to, among others, unreliable electricity supply, funding gaps, and human capital, which the State Department is addressing.
For those who are having challenges, we assure them the new arrangement in the new markets, we are addressing them. The new partnership we have with Kenya Power is going to sort those issues. The sustainability has been one of the issues, and we are looking at how we have been maintaining and operating our infrastructure. And one of the things we are looking and reviewing is how do we bring sustainability.
Having connected over 2,000 free public Wi-Fi spots countrywide, Engineer Tanui says they are on course to complete connectivity in 74,000 public institutions, a move that has received a boost from the World Bank to ensure the project is seamless.
We have engaged World Bank, and they have given us about 50 billion shillings, which we are now doing to deploy connectivity. And this is what will connect to the schools, to the markets. We are aiming to connect 74,000 public institutions. When you count all the public institutions, including the chief's office, the healthcare center.
A promise that traders in affected markets hope will be fulfilled in time to improve their business and keep Kenya on the right track to become the region's tech hub. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV.
President William Ruto has hit back at religious leaders who criticized his recent remarks and conduct, urging them not to allow politicians to turn churches into arenas for political battles. Speaking in Yala, Siaya County, alongside his allies, the president accused opposition figures of using church platforms to spread insults, hate, and divisive politics. Melito Letenges reports.
A war of words between President Ruto and opposition leaders has escalated in recent days, with sharp public exchanges drawing the attention of the church. Religious leaders have condemned the rising lack of decorum. The president and his allies are, however, shifting the blame back to the pulpit, accusing some churches of enabling toxic political rhetoric.
Lakini mimi nawaomba viongozi wetu wa dini, tafadhali musikubali majukwaa, musikubali madhabahu ya kanisa itumike kwa matusi na kwa kuendesha fitina na ukabila na chuki kati ya Wakenya.
We as Christians are more embarrassed that our religious leaders, our bishops, our archbishops can preside over the trading of insults in churches and in altars of our churches.
Tafadhali tutoe matusi kwa kanisa, tukutane kwa kiwanja. Sisi hatuwezi enda kwa kanisa kutusi watu. Sisi tunangoja wewe hapa kwa soko. Tutakumbusha wewe.
At a separate event in Bureti, Kericho County, Senate Majority Leader Aaron Cheruiyot also slammed the clergy for alleged selective criticism.
Wakati rais amekuwa akitusiwa kwa miaka mitatu, nyinyi mmenyamaza. Akijibu moja peke yake ndio sasa mnajitokeza. Surely jameni, is that really fair?
The president also accused the opposition of lacking a clear agenda, saying they have instead resorted to personal attacks during rallies, adding that he will not hesitate to respond.
Mara wananiita mwizi, mara wananiita muuaji, mara wananiita nini? Si wamendutukana for 2 years. Sasa juzi mimi nimewaambia wacheni matusi. Wakasema ati mimi nimesijui fanya nini.
Politics along party lines also took center stage, with ODM chairperson Gladys Wanga warning the opposition against interfering in ODM affairs, even as MPs signal a bruising showdown with the Linda Mwananchi faction within the party.
Wachana na mambo ya ODM. Wachana na mambo ya ODM kabisa. Wewe chunga hiyo chama yako ya kijiji ambayo unakaa nayo pale kando.
We want to announce here today that we are going to elect a new governor for Siaya.
Earlier, the president launched an affordable housing project in Yala to be built at a cost of 800 million Kenya shillings. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
Democracy for the Citizens Party leader Rigathi Gachagua says he will continue criticizing President William Ruto's leadership. Gachagua says the harsh statements recently issued by the president against the opposition are a reaction to the opposition exposing what he describes as poor leadership and widespread corruption, particularly, he said, in the health sector. He adds that the opposition will not stop until it removes President William Ruto from office in the next general election. Willy Lusige with more.
Nikisema harambe mnasema fagia. Harambe! Wasaliti wote!
DCP party leader Rigathi Gachagua took his campaigns to Githunguri constituency, where he first met Kikuyu elders in a private meeting in Kiambu County.
Wamakeki! Kimani Ichung'wa!
Gachagua says the opposition push to remove President William Ruto from power has gained momentum and there will be no relenting until he and his allies are out of office.
Tukiua nyoka, tunaua pamoja na maya. Tunakufukuza Kasongo na watu yake. Si ndio? Na ndio tumeleta kitu inaitwa Operation Fagia.
Gachagua says the opposition will continue to scrutinize and expose what he claims are major mistakes within the government, especially alleged corruption happening behind the scenes. He claims their recent revelation about alleged plan to forcibly take over Nairobi Hospital angered the president and led to his recent strong statements against opposition leaders.
Sasa nilipojua nikatangaza ikapotea. Kasongo angaike asiangaike. Sasa hii unaona analia kila mahali. Akitukana mimi, akitukana Matiang'i, akitukana Wamalwa, ni ile uchungu ya kumtoa nyama kwa meno.
The DCP leader says the opposition is committed to exposing wrongdoing in the government.
Nitahakikisha vile Wakenya hawalali kwa sababu ya shida umeleta nchi hii. Hata wewe utalala.
Gachagua also criticized Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, accusing him of neglecting his political backyard in terms of development and failing to address persistent livestock theft and banditry in his home region of Igembe North in Meru County. He says despite previously serving as an Interior Cabinet Secretary, Kindiki neglected his own region while focusing on politics.
Nikiwa naibu wa rais, huyu Soprano alikuwa waziri wa Interior. Nikamuita Soprano. Nikamuuliza Soprano, wewe watu ya Meru pale Igembe North wanauawa kila siku, ng'ombe zao zinaibiwa. Akaniambia mimi, wacha kwanza nisaidie rais, ndio mkubwa yangu. Sasa wewe Soprano, wa Meru wanaangaishwa na magaidi. Alafu unasukuka hapa na ndege na pesa na magunia. Atunasema ati wewe ni fire. Ni fire si fire.
Willy Lusige, Citizen TV.
Deputy President Kithure Kindiki says the government will deal with the banditry menace in Meru in the coming 2 weeks. The National Police Service has embarked on a multi-agency security operation that seeks elimination of banditry elements in the counties of Meru, Laikipia, Samburu and Isiolo. Franklin Wala reports.
In a statement, NPS notified the public of a multi-agency security operation assembled with the aim of recovering stolen kettles, mopping up all illegal firearms and ammunition, and restoring normalcy in the banditry-prone areas of Meru, Isiolo, Laikipia and Samburu counties. The operation's focus will be in parts of Meru, Buhuri East, Tigania East and West, and Igembe North, Central and Mutuati. Other targeted areas are Mukogondo Forest in Laikipia, Lantana and Sere Olipi in Samburu East, Kipsing and Ngare Mara in Isiolo, and all surrounding areas.
That monkey business of bandits, we have had it before. This is not the first time. They did it in Baringo, we crushed them. They did it in Elgeyo Marakwet. In Lamu, the Al-Shabaab who are doing the same things, we crush them. Northeastern, we crush them. We will crush them in Nyambene.
Over 2,000 security officers from elite agencies and KDF are part of the troops deployed to ruthlessly pursue bandits and livestock rustlers in the mentioned areas.
Hatuwezi kuishi katika nchi ya ati majambazi wanaumiza wananchi, wanaiba mifugo, wanaua wananchi, hakuna kitu inatendeka. Nimesema hivi, munipatieni wiki mbili. Mimi fireman mwenyewe this week nakuja hapa kuangalia vile operation inaendelea.
National Assembly members from Meru County called on the immediate resignation of the Interior CS over rising insecurity in the county, especially in the northern grazing zones. This comes after suspected bandits killed 3 people along the Tigania border on Wednesday and Thursday.
What we are demanding is immediate action by the government. We are where we are because the government has been reluctant for too long.
Mimi nasema CS Murkomen should resign because he has not been able to control banditry.
The Deputy President is, however, assuring locals of the government's commitment to a return to normalcy. Franklin Wala, Citizen TV.
All right, coming up on the other side of this break, we delve further, because we've discussed this before, into that final AFCON final of 2025 between Senegal and Morocco. The developments being that now Morocco have been declared winners. What went on there 2 months later? Stay tuned, because I'll be coming back with my panel of experts. Thank you for staying with us on Citizen Weekend. And now we get into that conversation on AFCON, shame and glory. You'll weigh in on which is which in which circumstance. And with me on set, as promised, I'm joined by football administrator Lodvik Aduda. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Good to have you on set. And sitting next to him is Sarah Ochwada, who is the FIFA Vice Chair Player Status Chamber. Karibu sana. Good to have you on set with us. We have Sam Karanja, who is a communication strategist as well as a sports marketer. Good to have you on set as well. And finally, Chepto Langat, who is a sports lawyer. Allow me to start with Lodvik, because Lodvik, I would be remiss in not at least tackling what has been in the headlines recently, which is that Kenya has until March the 30th to pay its dues to CAF as hosting fees. I read it was 3.9 about Kenya shillings, which is converted from 30 million US dollars. There were also concerns expressed by the sports principal secretary when he appeared before Parliament that they owe the contractor of Kasarani Stadium 3.7 billion Kenya shillings. Has Kenya bitten off more than it can chew?
Well, thank you very much. I think we have a situation where the money will be found.
Okay.
And we will host, AFCON together with Tanzania and Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I say that? I believe it is a national, issue. And the president is already aware that that is there and Parliament is there. Because the likely losses would be, really very grave with respect to football development in the country.
Mm.
Yes. So I'm convinced that in the next 1 week or so, Parliament will do something.
So unasema tusitense?
Tusitense.
All right.
It might not be June, July, but probably...
so you foresee a delay, possibly?
Yes, of course, yes.
Like what happened with Chan?
Yeah. And of course, what happened with AFCON 2025.
Yeah. All right.
And it's not going to be the first time anyway, so let's not panic.
Let's not panic. Yes. Okay, so we'll take your advice on that one. You're the expert. But I'll come to you now, Sarah. I feel a little bit like I'm suffering from whiplash. Today, when I Googled that match, Senegal-Morocco, it came 3-0 in favor of Morocco. Last time I checked, Senegal were the winners on the pitch. What has happened? What's happened?
Yeah, I know we're all fixated on the decision that CAF has bamboozled us with, but I think what you need to realize is we're looking at the difference between interpretations. So largely what we're asking ourselves is who has the authority to decide what abandonment is? Is it the referee or is it a judicial committee? So according to FIFA laws of the game, the referee has the final decision-making authority on the pitch, in the field of play, during the match. He has several powers. He can start, end, suspend, or even call for an abandonment. That's the referee. However, post-match, you have situations of misconduct which are taken through disciplinary proceedings. At that point, a judicial body can decide or can reclassify a particular conduct, for example, walking off, as being an abandonment rather than a match interruption. So that's where we're getting this difference in legal interpretations, and which is why now we have apparently a new winner of the AFCON.
Okay, I'll come to you now. I'll come to you, Sam, don't worry. I just want the lawyers to weigh in on this one for me. So this was the CAF Appeals Board, right? Yeah. So they overruled the disciplinary committee because I thought this thing was over and done with, settled, fines were given, coaches were banned. So is there a Supreme Court? But first, tell us a bit about this CAF. Who are they?
Well, CAF is the federation in charge of football in Africa.
No, the Appeals Board.
The Appeals Board?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a disciplinary committee who now... okay, so let's first go to the pitch. So the pitch is the referee. Okay. The referee decides on the pitch. And then the Morocco appealed and it went to the disciplinary committee. The disciplinary committee issued the sanctions, the financial sanctions, as well as banning the coach from the matches. And then now there's the appeals, the CAS Appeals Board, which is the next tier that is available to the teams. So the CAF Appeals Board now decided on this matter, and has now overturned what was the final decision? What was the final the final of the match? The final result of the match? Yeah, the score of the match. Yeah.
So Senegal has indicated that it will appeal. Yeah. So is there a Supreme Court?
No, there's no Supreme Court per se, because this is now within the international sports realm. So now the next available body to the countries is the Court of Arbitration for Sport, yeah, which is seated in Lausanne, Switzerland.
It does function in
as,
a way
as
the
Supreme
Court of Sports
yeah.
in the world.
Now it will have the final say.
It will have the final say.
Absolutely. What happens, unless, of course, they use other rules, in which case there's always a review on the rules in which, or rather how the interpretation has been used to apply the rules. But that's a whole different master's degree class on Swiss laws, which we will not get into today. But just to clarify on what she said, yes. So the Confederation of African Football has a governance and judicial bodies which deal with misconduct on the field of play. The first instance body is the disciplinary committee, which is the one which receives complaints from the Confederation of African Football based on the match reports of the referees. And then if anyone is aggrieved from the decisions coming from the disciplinary committee, they move on to the appeals. Everyone has a right to appeal within a specific time limit, which Morocco did. We didn't hear an appeal from Senegal, which is now why we have this outcome of Senegal suddenly not being the champions of Africa.
So I'll come to Lord Vic in a minute, but first let me ask Sam, because Sarah said she was bamboozled. I think that's the word she used. So I'll ask you if this is unprecedented. But Sam, I don't know what your timeline looks like. Mine, because maybe it looks like fans are not happy. But then again, maybe my algorithm is not in line with Morocco's algorithm. I don't know. But what do you make of, what have you seen? What have you seen the fan reaction to be to this outcome?
Outrage. Fans across Africa are dismayed. And the most interesting thing is that fans in Morocco are not even happier because
really,
yes, there've been some celebrations, but it feels. I mean, any fan who you invest actually in the live moment. So even for the Moroccan fan, it was that live moment. Now, to be awarded a trophy 58 days later on, it just doesn't feel like you won it. It took an intervention of someone else. And therefore, this particular decision has really, there maybe have been some legal correctness, in following those rules, and the two lawyers have spoken about. I think the 8.2 or something, one of those rules which have been applied. There's also the issue of the referee. So yes, if you went to the letter of the word of the letter in the regulations, they may have been correct. However, the fact that it took 58 days to do that comes with a reputation liability to CAF, because CAF has to be credible. The competition has to have integrity. So if you cannot win on the pitch and you win 58 days later, guess what suffers? It's CAF and also the competition.
Okay, I'll come back and ask you what your advice is for CAF, because there is that sense, just looking at my timeline, that Morocco held literally CAF's head over the barrel, but you'll advise CAF on how to handle that sentiment. But first, Lodvik, bamboozled was the word used by Sarah. Is this something unprecedented in the world of football?
Well, I don't really understand where the appeals and committee of CAF came from with that particular decision. They are relying on the fact that the rules and regulations governing, Africa Cup of Nations competitions might have been violated by Senegal. Given Senegal, some of the players left the pitch, but not all of them left the pitch. I think it is important for us to realize that with respect to football matches, there is always a difference between a match and a game. The match commences from around the time that the pre-match takes place and ends immediately after the two teams and the match officials retreat back to the dressing rooms at the end of the game. But the game commences when the designated KOT, kick-off time, takes place, and the person in charge is the CR, who is the center referee. Now, in this particular instance, there was a stoppage. There was no abandonment. We need to distinguish. There was no abandonment. There was a stoppage. And we need to look at what duration, or rather, what caused the stoppage. With respect to rules and regulations, we always have it that the primary source of information in any given match, or at the end of any given match, is the center referee's report. In the center referee's report, he indicates at the end of the game, the scores, the scorers, the minute which the goals were scored, in an event that there were, cautions, in the event that there were send-offs, and lastly, and which is most important, was there any big event that happened during that particular game? Now, what was the big event? The big event was that at some point, some of the players belonging to Senegal national team walked out of the pitch. So, in as much as we want to qualify Article 82 and 83, which needs to collapse, the two lawyers need to tell us, our layman's understanding of the proceedings is that you arrive at 84 having violated 82 and 83. Did Senegal violate 83?
Okay, I'm not familiar with 83 because the state
they know
about 82 and 84.
Yeah, they know. That is why they are nodding.
Okay.
Yeah. And the regulations are explicit that you arrive at 84 and subsequently take whatever actions based on the fact after you have established that the culprit in this particular respect, Senegal, having violated 82 and 83.
Okay.
Not 82 or.
Okay. Maybe Sarah can tell us, what is 83?
So 83 deals with you did not even show up to the match.
Okay.
And for 15 minutes of the match time, you were a no-show. So in that respect, together with 82, which says refusal to participate in the match, then you can go to 84, which is the penalty, where you're forfeiting the match, and then you will be given a 3-0 walkover, essentially.
Do you agree with Lodvik's assessment?
I agree.
Or reading of the statutes?
I agree, in as far as that interpretation was actually what was upheld by the disciplinary committee of the first instance. However, what we're waiting for is the rationale behind the appeal committee's decision. You know how when you go for exams, mathematics, you're told how did you arrive at your answer, show step A, B, C, D. That's what we're waiting for. So that legal rationale or the reasoned decision to see how they arrived at it's only 82 we are using in order to impose 84.
84, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll come to you now, Chepto, as the other legal mind on this panel. Who oversees the referee? Is the referee decision on the pitch? Is he judge, jury, and executioner, or is he subject to scrutiny? Because as I understand it, the reason Senegal walked off, or the coach told his players to go into the changing room, was because he was not happy with the decisions of the referee.
Yeah, well, on the pitch, the referee is final. But then now what is available to the players is now, and to the players and to the teams and to the countries in this case, is the various appeal boards. So in this case now we have the disciplinary committee, as we had discussed earlier, the appeals board, and then eventually CAS.
Do you think CAF will be forced to re-examine this appeals mechanism? Because I wonder, is this not after you have already imposed fines? You have already banned the coach from however many matches. Already there have been sanctions to now come back again with additional sanctions. Is that what lawyers call double jeopardy or a second bite at? I don't know.
I think the issue is really at what point can you protest during the match? And who do you protest to? Do you just go to the referee and tell him, this has happened and we should stop the match now and we should end this? Or do you protest immediately after the match? And then who do you go to protest to? Is it still the disciplinary committee or is it the Secretariat of CAF? Those are the issues which are underlying that we need a bit of clarity from CAF.
Okay.
Which unfortunately has not given us much to go on. And based on that, just the mere consistency on application of rules and regulations is at stake. So we need a lot more guidance and education from CAF to tell us how exactly do we go about this. Should there be conduct which the players see as impeding them from continuing the game? How do we do a protest in a manner that will not impose sanctions on us or will not be seen as misconduct?
Okay, so I'll come back to you, Lodvik, and ask you how you think this will impact player conduct, because now we are looking at AFCON 2027. But first, Sam, your advice to CAF, because it seems now there's a trust deficit here somewhat.
For CAF, it started as an issue. And it started, first of all, there was poor officiating. I think, let's us be very clear. There was a lot of issues, especially from the center referee. And what tends to happen with those issues, there's always a trigger. And in this particular case, there have been so many triggers. The first one was actually the penalty. That was an issue. It led, obviously, to the walkout. At that particular time, there should have been someone, actually, to whisper at the referee, because the referee is empowered, but at times you need to consult. And referees have that ability to consult, whether it's a VAR, referee, or it's, the match commissioner, or it's one of the, other referees, there should have been someone to communicate to him and say, these are the options that you have at this particular time to take. However, that did not happen. Then there was the issue of the walkout. Yeah, they came back. The referee ruled, let's proceed. Another trigger. There was a penalty. There was also, I think there was also the penalty which was denied also for Senegal also, another trigger. Yeah. So it's been a consequence of many triggers. Issues now it became a crisis. It became a bigger issue. It went to the discipline bit of it. We were outraged because there were also feelings that both sides also are not playing fair, especially the home side was not playing fair. So at any particular point, what they did was actually, it's not the application of the laws for CAF. It's really a reputation issue. Look at the credibility, the integrity. Where do you stop? Yeah. When it came to this particular appeals committee, yes, they were correct. They may have been correct. There's an argument on that. They applied some laws. But also in making some of these decisions, you look beyond that. You look at the sponsors. There are people who are paying for this. And when you look at the sponsors, there's one main sponsor. There are actually 4 levels of sponsors. And each one of them is very, very averse to backlash. Yeah? Because you're putting in money. You don't want crowds coming back to you, fans saying, oh, so-and-so you're associated with this particular one. So those ones will actually be calling on them. I'm sure they've already reached out to CAF. Because they're paying so much money to connect with people. There's the fans, of course. Fans live in the moment. They are broadcasters. Now, you as a broadcaster, you imagine you've actually put in archives. When you play the finals in the years to come, the reels that you play for promotion, which one will you play? Will you play the 1-0 or the 3-0 boardroom? So all these particular stakeholders need to be taken care of and understood. And you weigh those decisions and you say, this is not just a legal matter, it's a reputational matter. And therefore you start communicating every step. Immediately that final ended, they should have started communicating and say, okay, this is what is expected. Morocco has put in this is what is going to come, and give timelines. And timelines are judicious. Sports abhors a vacuum. It took 58 days. We've even forgotten about it.
Yeah.
So if you had said 7, I mean, you've seen it in the Supreme Court in Kenya. You say you're going to make a decision within 7 days, and you make a decision within 7 days.
Yeah.
So those are the timelines they should have given out in their communication.
They should take lessons from presidential petitions. Anyway, but Lord Vic, do you think this will impact player conduct, maybe as a deterrent? Because there was unsportsmanlike conduct on both sides. We saw the videos, apart from, the fans and the stewards getting into it. They got into it after they saw, where the goalkeeper's towels being taken and people are chasing each other, running around for towels. Although Senegal's conduct, was framed as the most grievous, right? So do you think this will impact how they conduct themselves in the upcoming games?
Well, the matter is not yet over, so I don't think it is right at the moment to come to that kind of a conclusion. In as much as that probably might be the case, it was not really, sportsman expected of, the caliber of, the professional players. But football being what it is, they took that decision. But I believe that the action so far taken by the appeals committee is wrong. Because they are basically behaving as if they have got the authority to do away with Article 5.2 of the laws of the game. That authority lies with IFAB, not any judicial body anywhere else. The match was not abandoned. The match was played to its logical conclusion.
And let me ask you this, because some said to him this was a problem of officiating, right? On the pitch, the referees. It's a referee.
The referee,
but we can live with
the referee. The referee has a discretion. Okay. The Senegalese players those who had left the pitch were summoned back into the game. They accepted the penalty to be taken. The penalty was taken. They missed the penalty. The referee continued with the application of the rules and regulations, applicable during such tournaments. That if it is a final, you don't proceed to the penalty straight. You have the extra time, which he did. And of course, it was during the extra time that Senegal scored.
So do you feel there needs to be capacity building?
The person in charge did not blow the final whistle.
But you think this showed a need for the capacity building?
Let me just finish what I'm saying. The person that was in charge of that match, who is the central referee, did not blow his whistle, to abandon the match. He continued with the match until the end of the extra time.
All right.
So nobody else, in my view, and with respect to the regulations governing, these tournaments, has the authority, to come up with something different from what the referee did. Of course, we have precedents that have been set before.
Okay.
In 1976, the same Morocco versus Ethiopia, what happened? Ethiopia walked out, Morocco walked out of the pitch. They came back. Those days, it was not a question of the finals, but it was a question of the team that ends up with, the more points,
Okay.
And then, of course, they were awarded. That is why you are finding Guinea now saying, wait a minute, if this is what you guys are doing, then we are going back to our 1976.
All right.
We have seen situations.
Time, unfortunately, has caught up.
We have seen, it is important, we have seen situations where, for instance, during the Esperance and Wydad match, we cannot just be here and not tell the truth, okay? So everything else, I maintain that everything else is not yet finished.
Okay.
But it will depend on how Senegal goes through the process of eventually filing their petition at CAS.
All right, so we need to take a break. I'm so sorry, so we have to conclude this. Quickly, how long will this appeal process take now? This, what's it called again? Arbitration. Sports?
The Court of Arbitration for Sport.
Yes.
Appeal.
Chapter.
Well, Sarah, what do you think? How long do you think this?
So it won't take long, or rather, it will take time, but it will not take forever. So we are hoping by Christmas, we should have a decision because it's not an urgent matter.
Okay.
Yeah, the matter's already, it's done, it's finished. What really we're looking at is the difference in interpretations by the lawyers and also the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the game. And we want to see who's going to end up winning that.
All right. I'm sorry, time limitations. That was the reason. All right.
Only 1 minute. I think what beyond this, it's not really about the legal correctness, I think is what Sam has been trying to say. It's not really about the legal correctness. There's also the public acceptance of all this, because that is what football is all about. So I think going forward, as CAS decides, as we move over to CAS, I think that's important consideration.
All right, thank you so very much. On my panel, I've had Sarah Ochada, who is FIFA chair, vice chair, player status chamber. We've also had sports lawyer Chepto Langat. We've had Lodvik Aduda, who is a football administrator, and Sam Karanja, who is a communication strategist and sports marketer. Thank you so much for giving your input, despite the time restrictions. But I think you've done a good job. Stay tuned. Kenya Editors Guild and the Standard Group slam attacks on K24 and Standard journalists in Cherangani. Details after the break. Thank you for staying with us on Citizen Weekend. The Standard Group and the Kenya Editors Guild have called on the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, to institute investigations and take action against the political players involved in an attack on 2 journalists who are covering the ruling party in Cherangani, Trans Nzoia on Friday. The Kenya Editors Guild President, Zubeda Kananu, has warned that should the authorities fail to act in a timely and decisive manner, The Guild will pursue other legal avenues, including private prosecution. The Standard Group acting group CEO, Chacha Mwita, has linked the attack on KTN's Gilbert Sitati and K24's George Njoroge to an expose it featured on its front page. The Kenya Editors Guild is also alarmed by a growing hostility towards journalists in a politically charged environment. Traders at the Gikomba market have strongly opposed a plan to relocate them at least 50 meters from the Nairobi River, contrary to what they say was the earlier agreed 30 meters. They warn that the move will affect many traders and disrupt their source of livelihood. Led by Mitumba Consortium Association of Kenya chairperson Teresa Wairimu, the traders say fears of eviction have already disrupted business operations at the market. They're appealing to President William Ruto to uphold the initial 30-meter proposal. The traders also argue that the relocation could lead to increased crime, as many of them would lose their source of income.
Shida inaingia hapa wakati wanasema watachukua mita 50. Hiyo kusema watachukua mita 50 ni kama kumaanisha wanachukua Gikomba yote. Tumeadhirika sana kama wafanyabiashara, kwa sababu sasa hakuna mtu ananunua mzigo, kwa sababu hajui atafukuzwa siku gani na anytime anaweza akatolewa. Kwa hivyo sisi kama wafanyabiashara tunataka kusema tunapinga vikali kauli ya kusema wanachukua 50 mita.
Ikiwa kuna jambo inatoka kwa serikali, ikuje ipitie kwa kamati ya soko kama Charity amesema, tuhusishwe na kila mtu ajue. Huko hatupingi serikali kudevelop.
Wimwaro FM, under the Royal Media Services stable, has partnered with Wakagoto Foundation in transforming Njukiri Primary School in Embu County that had suffered low enrollment for nearly 30 years due to poor infrastructure. The school has been fully reconstructed by a former student, Ken Java, and officially handed over to the community. The community says the renovation will bring improved education and brighter futures for generations.
Sisi kama Wimwaro FM kutoka Royal Media Services tumekuja kushirikiana na Ken Java Wakagoto Foundation ili kuhakikisha watoto wamepata masomo mazuri na ili kuhakikisha kila mzazi akona sababu ya kufurahia ya kwamba yeye katika haya majira watoto wake ama mtoto wake atakuwa anaenda mbali sana kusoma, lakini Njukiri Primary imerudi vile ambavyo ilikuwa.
We've been benchmarking at Kiharu, tunaona ile kazi amefanya huko na tumeanza na hii shule na tukwambia kuja atufungulie ndio pia sasa tuanze hizo zingine. Charity begins at home. So I come from Njokere village. Hapa ndio mimi nimesomea from nursery to class 8. Kwa hivyo niliona nianze kwetu nyumbani.
Vile alinieleza akona this kind of program. Nikaona ni vyema tushikane. I also show him how we do it in Kiharu, as I also learn how he is doing it. So we are here basically because of education and the progress of the people of Embu County.
A 13-year-old environmental activist, Baraka Muriuki, has launched a book encouraging teens and young people to conserve the environment. The book, titled Go Green with Baraka, urges the youth to take a keen interest in protecting and preserving the environment through tree planting. So far, Baraka has coordinated the planting of about 7,600 trees, with his target being 1 million. The book, written in a language understood by those his age, calls for the upscaling of environmental efforts, as he also seeks to recruit more to join his conservation campaign. According to the young environmentalist, nobody is too young to make a change, agreeing that steps taken early in safeguarding the environment contribute to a larger ecosystem that guarantees the nation a better future. Renowned environmentalist Dr. Isaac Kalua, speaking during the event, called for the upholding of key values that speak to responsibility, efficiency, and discipline.
When young children stand to speak about the environment, about climate change, it's not normal. As parents, we must stop. The world must stop. because they are not just talking about the future, they are talking about their inheritance. And we must ask ourselves, what is it that we are bringing about for our children to inherit? They are not the future. It is the present that has come early. And therefore we must try to read through their hearts. What is it, just like the questions they have asked today.
Throughout my journey, I've seen many things that made me realize that how serious climate change is. For example, last year when we had our floods, families were devastated when the floods carried away the homes, it carried away schools, and it carried away hope for children. But what disturbed me the most is seeing my fellow children missing school days, losing hope, and being scared. That may open my eyes to see that climate change is not only about weather, it's about people, it's about families, and it's about children like me. Sometimes the burden feels heavy in my heart, but I always stand strong. In fact, if wishes were horses, I once asked my parents if we could organize a mandamano, a march for climate awareness.
Gor Mahia moved a step closer to bagging a 22nd FKF Premier League title after a 2-1 win over Shabana FC in a league clash staged at the Nyayo National Stadium. The hosts took the lead through Jackson Ojwang, who finished off a well-worked attacking move by curling the ball into the top corner. Shabana responded quickly, taking advantage of a defensive mix-up in the Gor Mahia backline. Wycliffe Omondi capitalized on the error, heading past goalkeeper Gad Matthews to level the score before halftime. Gor, however, regained the lead from a set piece as Patrick Duang, delivered a corner that found captain Alpha Onyango at the far post to make it 2-1. The result sees Gor Mahia maintain their lead at the top of the table with 56 points, 10 ahead of the second-placed FC Leopards. Shabana remained third with 40 points.
It's Jackson Duang. Shabana nil. In the 22nd minute of the match, and they make a mistake here, and Shabana have equalized. I like to call it police marking. A nice lob here, it's in the net.
30 referees have graduated following the completion of a 5-day basic referee course in Buruburu here in Nairobi. The course, which was organized by FKF Nairobi East Branch, attracted 30 participants and was conducted by Richard Obare, FKF's physical endurance and training instructor, together with Damaris Kimani, a technical instructor. The participants, who have now qualified as Class 3 referees, were challenged to take up the mantle of taking the game to the next level with high standards of integrity.
So, for instance, when you talk about Nairobi East, we have almost 400 teams. In a weekend, when you talk about the venues which exceed 60 or 70, you find we normally have that shortage of the referees, because some of the referees are engaged in the Premier League and the NSL Division 1 and the women leagues. So you find at the grassroots we remain with a very big gap.
I'm so glad that this learning opportunity was created for us. We've learned a lot. Personally, I feel like I'm ready to go now to the field and officiate the game.
KCB volleyball team advanced to the round of 16 of the Kenya Cup second edition women's volleyball tournament with a convincing 3-0 victory over Nairobi Prisons at Nyayo Indoor Arena on Saturday. The defending champions won the match in straight sets 25-11, 25-16 and 25-18, securing top spot in their group and progression to the next stage. KCB's right attacker Marlene Terry was named most valuable player for her contribution during the match. Action continues at the Nyayo Indoor Arena on Sunday as KPC face KDF at 9 a.m, followed by Prisons Kenya versus Posta Bank at 11.
Nasema asante sana kwa teammates wangu kwa kunisupport pamoja na coaches nikakuwa MVP. Hayo tu.
The PIPSA one-day age group speed skating championship delivered thrilling action at Kasarani as over 11 teams converged to showcase emerging talent in the fast-growing sport. The standout performance of the day came from 11-year-old Tracy Ruguru of Toto Skaters, who stormed to victory in the girls' 100 meters race. Ruguru clocked an impressive 15:79 seconds to secure gold, finishing ahead of her teammate Ayana Mathay, while Mashru Seha of Samaj completed the podium.
With Toto Skaters. I've been finding this competition very exciting. I'm having a lot of fun so far, and I hope for the best.
We have a great turnout. We have over 500 kids from last time, which we had 300. They're showing that this game is growing, and we are encouraging parents and school heads to be setting up kids for such events.
Danny Welbeck scored a brace